Ladies and gentlemen,
Hey.
I want to welcome you to Scott Milligan's World of Physical Mediumship. My name is Sandra Champlain. I'm the host of We Don't Die Radio. I'm the author of the book called We Don't Die, A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. And in my over 20-year journey, I heard about something called physical mediumship, and it sounded way too good to be true. In fact, my mind said, if things happen in the dark, there's definitely going to be a con artist at play, but my desire to learn the truth was so strong that just over almost 4 years ago, I took a flight to the UK and an hour and a half taxi ride to this unbelievably wonderful place called Banyan Retreat. And I met for the very first time physical medium Scott Milligan, who you will see here if you don't see him already. And I experienced one of the most jaw-dropping, awe-inspiring, incredible experiences, bringing me from a faith in the afterlife to an absolute knowing. Now, for some people, you have no idea what physical mediumship is, nor do I. I was too afraid to talk about it because there are terms like ectoplasm and seances. And in my mind, these were things out of Ghostbusters. How could anybody ever take me as being a credible afterlife researcher if I was talking about such things? Well, if you can put your mind to the side, that mind that wants to critique everything and say, some things in this world we may not have to see to believe. And then I found out that Dan Aykroyd, who wrote Ghostbusters and starred in it, comes from a long family of physical mediumship. And it was based on the stories that he heard from his father and his grandfather of these magnificent things that happened in the dark, that the idea was created to make the comedy show Ghostbusters. So Scott is with me now. Are you together? Yep. So we're going to go on a journey with this wonderful man who has become one of my very closest friends. And you'll find out from him, a little from myself, why we love this world. And it's not about the phenomena that happens. It is about the connections that are made in the dark with loved ones becoming real again, those loved ones that have passed on to the other side. So absolutely amazing. I'm going to turn this over to Scott. Hello, Scott.
Hello, Sandra, and thank you so much for a kind introduction, as well as being patient with me. I have spent a long part of my life, actually longer than, if you carve my life in half, I've spent more time with the spirit world than I have within this physical world. In the sense of that, over 24 years have passed of me investigating as well as sitting in a confinement of a sacred space and listening to these voices that have appeared in the air. Now, for those who do not know about physical mediumship, by the time we finish speaking, hopefully it's given you a taste of something. And then it's up to you to go further and investigate this wonderful world that has opened up for me. And it opened up in a way that I have to say I wasn't searching for, but for whatever reason it presented itself. Ordinarily, that I always do talks on the history. And so many people ask me, how did you get into it? What is it? So on this journey that we will share only for a brief moment, I want to invite you to come into the steps of my development as I share stories with you and hopefully kind of highlight areas that something within you is telling you it is time. But in order for us to start our journey, let me try and simplify what physical mediumship is. A mental medium will stand upon a platform or sit in front of you, and through their senses, they will relay information from someone who you know, and through their senses, they will bring their personality, and you will say yes, no, don't know. With physical mediumship, everyone in the room hears it. Everyone in the room experiences it. You will hear the so-called dead become solid as you and I. If you are blessed to sit with someone who has developed their capability and have a chemical within them that allows light to be used during a demonstration, not only will you hear your loved one, you will see your loved one as solid as you and I. They will walk around a room, you'll hear their footsteps, they will embrace you, they will be solid. Any marks within their being, be it tattoos, they will manifest upon them, so you know this is definitely your loved one. And for me, it's an absolute privilege, beyond words, the life I have lived, that I have seen so much. Now, I want you to start this journey. Believe not a word I say until you experience it yourself. But I have no reason to lie to you. I have no reason to say things which are going to wound my own progression, because the spirit world says honesty is the power that will move you to stand to represent us. So if you would like to come on a journey with me, let me share thoughts with you. Let me retrace my steps, what has led me to this point to speak with you. But I just want to thank all of you for joining me at this moment. Wherever you are in the world, whatever you are doing, I hope that you are safe. I hope that you are well. I hope that there's love within your being and there's no sadness within your life. I want to give back to all of you who have been patient with me, patient with my peculiarities, patient with my weirdness in the sense of who I am. And this night is for all of you, for me to say thank you. So many years ago, that sounds like how I start my story, isn't it? Many, many years ago, I was born into a loving family, a family that had no religion, but gave us the freedom to be open to anything. Whatever you wanted to do, you can do as long as it doesn't harm anyone. And I have to say that I actually believe within my bloodline, mediumship has always been there. Each of my family members, my close-knit family members, have experienced some form of phenomena, be it with a mental capacity or a physical capacity. So I know that it was within my bloodline. And very young in my life, I was always aware of a person that would walk up my stairs in the middle of the night and would make me scared. Because I would see them, but I was able to see through them as well. And I knew that they were different, but it always seemed to happen when I was alone or in the middle of a night of some kind. And many years passed, and I kept on hearing every night this dun 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 dun. And I remember running downstairs one night and saying to my mum and dad, the earth's moving, the bed's moving, because I could feel it kind of wobbling and moving. And sometimes that you would get a call saying, stop bouncing up and down in your bed. And I wasn't bouncing up and down. It was something was actually starting to move and happen. And like anything, that throughout your childhood, up until a certain age, it became very active, and then it started to settle down. And I always noticed that when the light was off, I was being able to see what I call jellyfish, like mist and movement of power, which was either yellow or blue in texture, and it would move and it would be like a fog, and it will intensify. And as it intensified, you would hear like crackles, knocks, scratches, all within my bedroom. And I remember my father one time when he was coming up to bed, and he would say, there's someone singing, right? You know, who's singing? And it would always appear from my bedroom, but it wasn't me singing. There was a voice that sometimes would manifest in like a kind of operatic sound, not too loud, but loud enough to disturb my father. And during the nights that my grandmother, who was my mother's mother, who passed before I was born, would come and visit me. And she had a very identifying mole. And my other grandmother, who was still alive, had a birthmark on her forehead. So I used to say, which one am I seeing today? One with the mark here or one with the mark here? And I was always reminded that you would only have one grandparent. But this lovely lady, my nan, used to visit me at night and grab me by my feet and drag me down the bed. And I would feel her fingers tickle my ribs. And I would run back up the bed, and then all of a sudden my feet were being pulled down the bed again, and I'll slide to the bottom. And this was a very loving experience. It was a very normal experience because it happened quite often. And then we grow up, we go to school, and I noticed as we were progressing within school, I was very bored. I was diagnosed with dyslexia at a very late age. So my reading age was very, very poor. My memory age was very, very poor. And then all of a sudden, when teachers were talking, I would see a light around them. And as they would walk, there would be a separate person behind. Now, this was all a form of a mental mediumship because only I was seeing it. And when I said to people, you know, who's that person? And they would say, I don't see anyone. So there was nothing physical about this experience, but it showed that the nucleus was there. I was a child that was very quiet, you know, hard to believe. I was a very shy person. And I would always get lost in my own thoughts. And I became a dustman when I left school. And I wanted to do other things with my life, but that was the only job that was available at that time. And I was being very painfully bullied in the sense that I was being beaten up quite often in my work. And I hid it very, very well, but I suffered from depression. And I happened to do the UK lottery. And the UK lottery, you had to get 6 numbers and you'll be like a multi-millionaire. And I was fortunate enough, I got 5 numbers. It wasn't much, but it was enough at the age I was to set me on my dreams. Dreams to go and see the world or buy what I needed to buy, not have secondhand items anymore. And I wanted to buy a computer, and I wanted to buy a PlayStation, and I wanted to be the first of my group to have this PlayStation. And anyone who knows about checks in those days would take 5 days to clear. And this is all relevant, by the way. So I waited 5 days and finally the check cleared and I wanted to buy a computer. And I went to a computer shop called Game Mania. And I got there and I went in there and I said, I want that, and that, without any hesitation, not even asking the price. That's what I wanted. And the 2 ladies said, don't waste your money here. Go next door and have a reading. And I thought, what do you mean? And they said, no, go and see what the future holds for yourself. And all of a sudden, I found myself wanting to go next door. And I don't know if any of you have experienced this. And you go next door and I expect to see a lady with a tea towel on her head with big earrings, big crystal ball and everything. And I was right about everything besides the tea towel. And she said, right, come and sit down. And I sat down and I listened to what she had to say. And she was saying stuff that only my family would know. But I'm from a very well-known family. So I thought everyone knew one another. And I thought someone had told her this information and she was after my money. I thought she was a con artist. And as she was talking, this light, what I used to see at school, this other presence started to build around her. And I paid no attention to it. But anyway, she carried on. And then I paid her £20, I think it was, or £25. And I went back to the computer shop and it was shut. And it was the weekend, so I had to wait another day and a half so that I can then go and buy this computer. On the Sunday, I got a call from a lady called Brenda Sheridan. And she said, can I speak to Scott? And I said, speaking. I was like, hello. And she said that we've just held a physical seance and your details have been given. And I thought straight away she's a nut job. And I put down the phone. And then the phone rang again. And she said, I'm sorry, we've got cut off. I must insist. We held a physical seance and your details have been given. Would you like to come along and meet a gentleman called John Austin? And again, something inside me, like the reading, told me I had to do this. So I said, yeah, sure, okay, as you do. And bear in mind, I'm very young at this age, very rude, very straight to the point as well. And I was taken by car to her, to John Austin's, which he lived in Hove, near Brighton, not far away from my house. And I entered at the back of these premises, and there was this lovely old man with a lovely tash. And he said, "You're Scott Milligan." I said, "Yes, I am." And he said, "Your grandmother, your mother's mother's in the other world, but your father's mother is still with us." I said, "Yes, that's right." And he started telling me about my life. And again, I thought that someone was trying to take my money. So he then said to me, "What do you think about mediumship?" And I said, "Who told you about all this?" And he said, "My wife." I said, "Who's your wife?" And he said, "Geraldine." I went, "Okay, can I meet your wife?" And he said, "You will, you will." He said, "I want you to sit." I said, "What do you mean sit?" And they were using these phrases that seem so easy for us now, but very confusing back then. And he said, "I want you to sit for the presence of the spirit." And I said, "No." He said, "I'll tell you what, let's do the Ouija board then." And some people have thoughts on the Ouija board. And at that time, my thoughts was, don't touch it. Don't want to go anywhere near it. And he said, "What do you mean?" I said, "No, I'm not interested, not doing it." He said, "Do you think this is going to hurt you?" And I said, "Yes." And he picked the board up, and it was a round board about that big, and he hit me across the face with it. And as he hit me, and as I turned, I thought, "I'm going to deck you. I'm going to jump over the table and beat you to death with my shoes." And he said, "That's the only thing that's going to hurt you. Put your finger on the glass." I put my finger on the glass, probably with my nose bleeding as well, and it spelt out Milligan sit. Milligan sit. And it moved too fast. And I said, "When?" And he went, "Now, now, now." So I was taken into the seance room, and I sat in a chair, closed my eyes because I was told to, and nothing happened. Sound familiar? Nothing happened. And I thought, this man is barking mad. And he said, "I want you to sit." And I said, "No, not for me." And he said, "Before you say no, go and see the medium I trained." So I went, "All right then." And quickly I was bundled into a car and off to Hayward Heath. Hayward Heath was a place about 5 minutes from my house where this man who John trained to be known as Colin Fry, who happens to be his birthday today. And I was taken down to the end of the garden and put in a very confined shed with about 30 people. And I thought it was God's waiting room. I thought, oh, here we go. Colin came in and said, "Nice to meet you, Scott. I've heard a lot about you." And I said, "Who?" He said, "John's wife." So I'm still trying to wait to meet this woman. And everyone in that place seemed to know of me. And again, I sat there, and I sat in between two ladies, a lady called Joan and a lady called Marlene. And we were asked to hold hands. And I thought, I'm not holding your hands, but we held hands just to meet each other. You know, "Are you doing all right?" "Yeah." And then we placed our hands back in our lap. And then the door was sealed up, the light went off, and I'm terrified of the dark. And there was a gentle red glow, and Colin was being tied to a chair at this point. And I thought, oh my goodness, where have I gone? What have I got myself into? And a curtain was drawn round him. And very quickly, as the lights went out, you heard me hyperventilate. And as I started to hyperventilate, they said, "We're going to need to sing." And so I said, "Okay." And if anyone knows me, knows I can't sing for anything. And we started to sing Drunken Sailor. And as we started to sing Drunken Sailor, when we got to "Ooh Rain Up She Rose," this trumpet lifted up in the air. And it seemed to be moving with this invisible force. And I screamed. And as I screamed, I gripped the hands of the people on either side of me. Marlene said, "Stay still, don't move." And I'm going, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." And she said, "Look at it." And I saw the trumpet move. And as it moved, she said, "Is that you, Charlie?" And the trumpet stopped and went like this, moved in front of me. And she said, "I'm so excited, it's Scott's first time." And I said something to Marlene, which I won't repeat, but it's on tape recorder. And this voice came out and said, "Is it, mister? Let me get my legs." And then all of a sudden, as God was my witness, a child, not very old, maybe under the age of 6, ran out the cabinet, as solid as you and I, and gripped my hand. It was warm, it was childlike. He grabbed my hand, he shook my hand, and said, "Nice to meet you, mister. God, you got big hands." And he kicked my feet and he said, "You got big plates and all." And then he walked back into the cabinet. The moment he touched my hand, I felt the most deepest love that has always remained with me. As he went back in the cabinet, this old man moved out as solid as you and I and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Alec Guinness." And you heard me say, "Who the hell is Alec Guinness?" And this voice came back and said, "Young man, I was always known as Obi-Wan Bloody Kenobi." And my thoughts back to that was, oh my God, the force is strong with you. And in my head, it was hysterical, but no one laughed in the room. I thought, party for one. And I said to him, "Could you sign this piece of paper?" Because my dad wouldn't believe me. He went, "No." And I thought, miserable old man. He went back into the cabinet and the seance continued. I couldn't tell you what happened besides this overwhelming thirst to want to do it. And coming to the end, there was a gust of wind. And as this gust of wind came, there was a mighty bang. And when the lights came up, Colin had been lifted from the cabinet with his chair and landed directly in front of me. The wooden leg of the chair was between my legs and his feet were on the other side. There was no way that this man could have moved himself because he was restrained, but also not knock me or knock anyone in that room. Could you imagine this kind of cartoon impression? You know, when a cartoon character runs towards the wall and bursts through it and it's just an outline of him. That was like me when I ran towards the door at the end of the seance. And I ran home and I picked up the phone and I phoned John and I said, "I want it." And he said, "Go away and learn manners." I thought, "What, eh?" He goes, "Learn manners and I'll form a circle. And that circle will sit for you. Stay close to my medium for a month. Learn from him and your circle will be ready." So the start of physical mediumship, my little lovers, is that a home circle is key. These people are people just like you and I with an interest of wanting to sit to serve the spirit world without any demands. They sit and they just say, "Go on, just be you." John was my circle leader and he got this group of people together. And on the first sitting, as I came into that room and tied down, on the first sitting, when we said, "Is there anyone there?" and the almighty bangs were on the wall, as loud as that. And it made me jump. And on the 11th sitting, a voice manifested in the air separate from anyone. And the voice called out from the dark. We had nothing then for 2.5 years. Nothing. Not even a change in atmosphere. Did we stop? No, we didn't. Did we question? Yes, we did. But within those 2.5 years, every night I sat with Colin, with David, Stuart when it was available, Joan Avison, and these 4 people had the gift of physical mediumship. They sat, and through their senses, unbelievable things occurred. But through my development, the mist that night got intense again. This feeling, this presence started to build again. The voices in my room started to whisper again. And when we went back into the seance room, 2.5 years had passed that we were sitting week in, week out and getting nothing, or so we thought. And I wanted to give it up. I thought I wasn't the medium. And then deep within me, a voice started to say the word yes. I couldn't tell you where it came from, but it felt like it came from my stomach. And over the time of this word that kept on repeating, getting bigger and bigger and bigger, I couldn't move around it. So I thought, well, I'm going to just say it. And instead of it coming out yes, it came out yush. Yes, yush. And every time I wanted to say yes, it came out yush. like I had a lisp, and I couldn't control it. And then all of a sudden, the voice broke again and said, yes, and now we come to speak to my brothers and sisters of the joining of our world and yours. That voice that seemed to have come from me started to move me from believing to knowing that something was starting. And very rapidly, over the next few sittings, the voice started to get stronger and stronger and stronger. And John Austin, he was like Mr. Miyagi. He used to train you in a way that you didn't think you were doing the training. It seemed pointless, but he would continue to encourage you to move forward. And that's what you need, each of you, someone to encourage you and allow you to make mistakes. So as we started to sit, the knockings came back, the cracklings. It sounded like flicking, like these kind of knock noises was happening within the confinements of these four walls. Over time, there was a bit of them in the communication and loss of me. And over the period of time with the love of our circle, this started to fade away. I started to fall back, and the spirit world started to step forward, until one night we left John's, and something within me knew something wasn't right, but you kind of think, oh, that's my mind. John went to bed, got up, and then he went to have a shower, and unfortunately he fell to the ground and he had a mighty stroke, and he wasn't found for 3 days. And anyone who knows about a stroke knows that within the first 4 hours is the crucial point to get that person back. John spent a year in hospital trying to recover from this system. And the moment I was told, and the moment I got to the intensive care unit, and I stood there with Colin looking down at a shell, thinking this is our final goodbyes with him, he opened up his eyes, and with a graveling voice, he said, "What the effing hell are you doing here?" And I looked at him, and he whispered it again. I thought, did I just hear you swear, John? And he said, "What the effing hell are you doing here?" And I said, "I'm here to see you." He said, no, go and sit for our friends. Sit for our friends. Don't worry about me. Sit for my friends. So I went, okay. And we left, and we had to go to John's house and open up, and we can see where he had fallen and where the paramedics have been, and go and continue to sit without a circle leader, having that blind faith that our friends from an invisible world will lead us to that place of knowing. After a year, John returned, and we were so excited because he was the power, he was the reason why we were sitting. And then very quickly after he came back, I turned up at Circle to hear all this noise, to find 2 of my Circle members on the floor pulling each other's hair out, fighting on the floor. And I've come in and I looked at John and said, "What the hell's going on?" And he said, "Oh, it's interesting." And John had a very good sense of humour. And there's tufts of hair coming out here and everywhere. And he's got his stick and he's poking them, saying, "Stop that now, but hit them harder." You know, it was that kind of thoughts he always had. And another Circle member turned up, and we were able to separate these 2 ladies. And they had had a disagreement, and unfortunately a disagreement turned into a war. So 2 Circle members was asked to leave straight away by John. And have you found that within your circle seems so strong, and then all of a sudden people come and go? So my circle, which was strong, was now down 2 members, and also John was at half power because he was still recovering from this stroke. So it was only me and Pat. Because John had trouble getting in and out of bed, a lady turned up who was his carer and wanted to put him to bed. A guy in his 80s, before 8 o'clock at night. And he said, no. He said, "I go to bed a bit later. And he said, we're going to have a sit-in now. What do you think of that? This word sit-in. And so he goes, what do you mean? She goes, we're going to do a seance. Would you like to come along? And without any hesitation, this lady turned around and said, yeah, the patient after me has gone. So you are my last one. I was hoping to have an early night. And she came into the front room, and the spirit world spoke to her. The spirit world brought her father through to convince her that she would be part of our circle. This lovely lady still sits with me up until this day. She's my longest. But the moment she joined and the circle started to reform, the phenomena got stronger. And you will find, my little lovers, that as you sit, your mediumship will unfold like the seasons. One time it will be strong this side, one time it will be weak that side, but you're still moving forward. And the phenomena started very rapidly. We had a big meter wooden board on the floor, and that started to move. And the reason we would have the meter wooden board is that the ectoplasm that exudes from the medium's body must also return. And it was a clean surface for the spirit people to stand on and to manipulate on without causing any harm as it goes back into the medium's being. This board used to lift up very, very quickly and start to hit the ceiling, and will come back down very, very quickly, up and down, up and down. It was what we call pointless phenomena. It had no meaning to it. Equally at that moment, the sofa that Pat and Lorraine would sit on will start to move, be pushed backwards and forwards, or lift up on one side and back down. Up and down it went. The trumpet, this very trumpet, started to kind of lift and drop, lift and drop. And all throughout this process, my circle leader remained calm and said, isn't that wonderful that they can do that? And he said to me, if you dare, go out and tell people that you can do this, I'll stop sitting for you. You can't do anything. It's our friends that do everything. And he was instilling in me that actually I am just a point. A point. I'm not the driving force behind it. Our friends from the unseen world are doing everything that they can do to make it possible that contact can come. So as the phenomena started to unfold and the spirit world requested things to be brought in, we would obey. I used to like to be over the top, and I used to litter the whole floor with all toys, and I still do some ways. I used to bring in different challenges for the spirit world and say, right, okay, I'm dyslexic, can you write a letter with perfect spelling? And I was demanding of the spirit world, and John would remind me of that. He said, did your friends tell you to do so? I said, no. He said, well, why are you commanding then? They're in charge, not you. You're not important, he used to say to me. And I thought, well, yes, I am, because without me, you wouldn't have a medium. And he said, without us, you wouldn't have sitters. So it works both ways. So he always kept us level-headed. So as the phenomena started, we would have what was known as ectoplasmic rods or pseudopods. And ectoplasm is a white substance, and I am going to show you some photographs a little bit later of my work, of what we've been able to capture. And it would exude from the body, and it would exude in the form of a gas, and it will become like a cloth, and that will go towards the floor, and it will grip whatever object it needed to be manipulated at that time. But the spirit world is such an intelligence. They would grip, say for argument's sake, the trumpet, like this. And what they were doing is they were learning how to lift things. And that's why the trumpet kept on lifting and falling, lifting and falling, because they were strengthening the rods. The same with the sofa. They needed something more heavier. And I'm sorry to say that my circle members were heavy. And they would exercise the rods to make sure that everything was where it was meant to be. During this process, other people started to join the circle. And if we invited people, they would only last for about 6 weeks. But if people came and it felt right, they would stay with me for the period that is required. So as John got stronger, he got deafer. So the spirit people had to start shouting. And as they started to shout, it commanded them to that they were able to amplify their voice. And I was so comfortable with a personality that worked with me. When the spirit world tried to introduce new people, I think, you're not going to speak through me like that. You don't feel like my team. And I don't know if any of you have experienced that as you're in the trance states. When a new personality comes, your body is trying to cope with it, understand it. This new personality of a younger voice, a squeaky voice. And I thought, you're not going to speak through me. And before I even thought that, this voice manifested. And he called everyone duck and duckies. And this cheeky little character said, I am the one in charge of the phenomena. Or in his case, he used to say phenomenon. And he used to make us laugh. But his job is to create the power. And once Daniel was introduced to our circle, then there's a rapidness of unfoldment. Like I said, the phenomena was very aggressive with me, to the point, it was on one occasion when Lorraine was present. This is John's carer, who is now a circle member. She was sitting on a sofa, and next to her was Pat. And the spirit people said, I want you to put the light on for 10 seconds, turn it off for 10 seconds, put the lights on for 10 seconds, turn it off for 10 seconds, and keep doing this until we say enough. So as the spirit friends said, so we began. So I'm restrained to a chair, and that time I probably weighed about 11 stone, maybe 12 stone maximum. About 12 stone. Well, we'll pretend it's 12 stone. I don't want to sound any more bigger than I am. So 12 stone. So as I've slipped into the trance states and the instructions have been given, they did what was commanded. The chair lifted and dropped into the middle of the room, slid across the ground, and as it slid across the ground, and it started to tip over, so it kind of rocked over the sofa in between Pat and Lorraine, while they constantly went 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 10, then again up to 10, up to 10, and it moved over the sofa. It dropped on the floor, and then it tilted again, so that the back of the chair, upside down with me in it, was against the wall, and it started to slip up the wall, and it was done in red light. And as that happened, John screamed, enough, you'll break his neck. And the chair drops from the wall without touching anyone or hurting me, flipped back over, and then flipped back over. And it kind of done like somersaults back into the cabinet. I have never to this day understood the reasons why they did that. But what was interesting, they were showing that I was able to then take light. Again, the development started to increase, but the trance voice was very weak in the sense of if anyone was asking questions, they weren't giving a satisfying answer. They said, be patient with us, we must continue. Remember, as I said, a certain area of the gift will start to gallop and others will start to slow down. But you'll get there in the end. At this point, some members started to join who are more seasoned in trance communication and philosophy. They weren't interested in the phenomena. They were just interested in sitting with the spirit world. And then all of a sudden, the phenomena slowed down and maturity became part of the trance states. Questions were being answered, which was outside my mind capability. These wonderful people were Nick and Stephen from Banyam. I had other members come and go, but they entered into my circle, and from the moment they entered, something ignited within the ability. I always think forming a circle is like baking a cake. You have to have the right ingredients added at the right time. Again, more circle members joined, including Darren, and some of you know Darren. Darren is my partner. But in that days, he was a scared partner because he wanted to know why I was going off to so-called class or college. And I've been going off to college for many, many years, but I haven't graduated. And he wanted to know where I was going. How often do you go on courses and you tell your other half, I'm going on a spa, or I'm going for a retreat of some kind? You don't tell them that it's about mediumship. It's like a dirty word. Like seances can be known as a dirty word. And I thought, well, do you know what? He asked, so I'll tell him. So I told him I go there and I sit, and things happen. Would you like to come along? And very quickly, without hesitation, he came along. And the phenomena seemed to show an interest in him. A metal trumpet would fly up and hit him. Now, in those days, the other world didn't know their strength. So when they would come up, instead of them lifting the trumpet and gently doing it, they'd be like this. But they would always do it to the people that they know it wouldn't harm, wouldn't scare or offend. So with Darren, he would always get knocked by the trumpet. And then over time, they started to learn, actually, this is too hard. And they started to soften their touch. Now, if you came and sat with me, you won't get that. You'll get little hands on your knees, on your shoulder, on your hair. The trumpet would come up without touching you or go across your face, which shows there's intelligence. Or tap your shoulder, tap your head, tap your belly, tap your knee, and off it will go. So every form of phenomena had intelligence. So if you're sitting in circle and phenomena is taking place and there's no intelligence, you kind of have to ask yourself, where's that coming from? So as things started to progress, as I said, and Darren joined the circle, John started to become more and more unwell. He kept on saying, I think my time here is done. And I said, not yet. And he said, I think it is. My wife is calling me. I said, she may be, but I need you here now. And I need you here to stay with me. Because without you, there's no one else experienced enough. John, you would ask him any date in history, he would tell you what medium worked and who was his control or her control. He was the one that taught me how to learn from the past to build a better future. John's wish was to see the ectoplasm, but sadly he started to weaken and he was taken into a home. And a month before, or within the month before he passed, the spirit world was able to do what I call the unbelievable. And that was to create a phenomena where the ectoplasm was photographed and light was put on. When the light went on during the sitting, I started to feel unwell. For whatever reason, this energy that was within me was light sensitive. And when we spoke to the spirit world about it, they said that we were created in darkness, within the womb of a mother. This power is created within darkness of your being. If you've been in darkness all your life and then all of a sudden a light turns on, you're going to recoil back, aren't you? It wasn't necessarily the light that causes the harm. It's the speed that this energy comes back into you, which causes burn or hemorrhage. Darren switched on the light just before John went into the home. And this is what was really funny and how cool my circle leader was. So the seance ended in my home circle and John asked Darren to put the light on. And instead of him switching on gently, he turned it up full brightness. And I go, ah! And as I went, ah, my nose burst with blood and I started having a heavy nosebleed. And I'm mortified. And John turned and went, oh, how wonderful. And I'm looking at him saying, what the hell are you talking about? I'm bleeding. He said, I've waited for this. It shows you're developing. And I said, but I'm bleeding. He said, it shows you're becoming light sensitive, which means we're going forward. Wonderful. And off he went. Off he went. I got that awful call after he'd seen the photos, after everyone had gone up to see him to make sure he's well, that John left to join his wife and son. And till this day, I still miss him. He was like a typical granddad, and I will show you a photograph of him. Bushy tash, ex-army, strict, but loving at the same time. He said, our friend, now without a circle leader, I started to step out into the public to a point that I was able to work at the Arthur Findlay College and demonstrate there. And those who may have sat with me in those times would know that I was going through a very rapid acceleration with apports and phenomena. The apports, in a very short time, I had over 100 apports. And apports are objects which have been brought in by the spirit world. The spirit world have found them in locations around the world and brought them to this destination at that moment. The apports can range from very simple to coins to very large statues, or in my case, 2 leather-bound chairs, bucket chairs, that are ported in a demonstration which was stacked on top of each other, almost 6 foot high. If anyone doubted that I had anything concealed on my being, I would like to see how they hid a chair on my being. These chairs were massive. What was the purpose of it? Because the spirit world could. And in this time when I worked at the college, part of the agreement for me to work there, I had to be able to withstand a form of light. So as the seance started, they would show ectoplasm. Ectoplasm is this living, breathing force which crackled. It moved like egg white in water. It bubbled like fried eggs. It would crumb out and it would crackle as it would move down through your body. It would stretch almost 3 meters away from me for people to see. And on 2 or 3 rare occasions, Tanya, who is the manager of the Arthur Findlay College, was asked to open the door of the library to allow natural light in during this demonstration. A lady came to me and she gave me a big hug, and she was very sincere, very gentle. She said, I've been to so many of your sit-ins and they're lovely, but this isn't bringing my son back. And it made me consider what we are doing. Why are we doing this? What is the purpose of this? So as we were sitting there, we crept back into darkness because they couldn't do the light phenomena and bring a loved one through. It took too much power. So my development started to change. I'd gone from being very strong in play school now into secondary school. This is what it's meant for. And over the coming weeks, young Daniel, who I denied at first, started to say, I have your mother here, your father here, and give you information and then deliver you a message. And then all of a sudden, a voice started to manifest from the side of my neck. And it would breathe, it would talk in different languages and different textures, different way of thinking. And it was independent direct voice. And this is where the spirit world are able to make an artificial voice box replicated from my own vocal cords. They would mold it and have it separate from me, so I could drink water and the voice would still talk. Daniel said one time, I've got your father here, blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden, the father's voice materialized and started to call out themselves. Obviously, when I moved back from the trance states, people would speak about it, and I was like, no, you're wrong, you're crazy, no, it's not right. But I said it happened because I would have no conscious memory of it. And this is what I'll say to all of you who are developing. Don't go away and develop it. Go away and get used to it, because the spirit world will develop it, but you have to get used to it. So as this voice started to manifest, and again at the Arthur Findlay College, sitting there, and my control would then give out the information, and then someone say, I recognize that, and then the voice would then manifest. And then the voice would then collapse and the phenomena will continue. There was mixed divides because a lot of people wanted the phenomena and some people wanted the communication. And it's finding that right balance between them by saying to the spirit world, what do you want to do with this opportunity? So we continued, and a lovely lady called Kitty Wood, who's an outstanding medium from the Netherlands, lovely, lovely lady. It was her time to come into a demonstration with me. And it was her birthday. And I didn't know it was her birthday. And as I was being tied down, she just happened to comment and say, I've never seen an apport come in red light. On this night, the spirit world, and this is the awesomeness of intelligence of the unseen world, that they were able to reunite her with a communication from a family member, but then invite her up to in front of the cabinet, and in red light then she was asked to cup her hands and place them under my mouth. My mouth opened and she saw like a kind of light and then inflation, and out came a solid silver bracelet with amber stones to decorate it. She said as it came out, it felt cold. So if it was concealed on someone's body, it would be warm, but it felt cold. So evidence started to manifest with the apports. They weren't just dead objects. They had meaning. And then as time passed, as we started to demonstrate more, they wanted to experiment more. And again, I'm going to use the words, believe me or believe me not. But believe not a word I say until you experience it yourself. In Kingswell's house in Scotland, where I was demonstrating, I was tied to a chair as normal. And I had this moment of this demonstration. I said to the whole group, let's do an experiment. I don't know why, but I thought I must. So I said yes. And a lovely lady who now sits with me called Debbie was on this side and Eileen Davies was on the other side. Tied wrists and legs to make sure I'm not moving during this demonstration. I'm using policeman's ties, which are very, very strong, and around the wrists. The ends cut off in a certain way so that people can actually then measure them back up to make sure that these were the ties they put on me. Super glue can be used if they want to down the end of the cable tie just to make sure that everything is above board. And because this was an experiment, no money had changed hands, and we sat within a group of people and they started to sing and they were given the instructions. I want you to place your hand in the cabinet and find his hand. So Debbie placed her hand in and found my hand and held the strap around the wrist. Check it. So she checked it, made sure it was still secure around the chair, around the wrist. And she was asked to put her hand on the end of my fingers. And then the hand went up. The strap was still around the chair and they'd done matter through matter. And then the hand went back down. Still bound. They did it again for her and they did it for Eileen. And they said, do you trust us? And both of them said, of course. Put your hand back to the fingertips. Now place your hand in and go up the arm. So both Debbie and Eileen went up to the arm. When it got towards the shoulder, their hands touched the back of the chair. That the body, the main part of the body, had dematerialized. Debbie put her hand up and she cupped my head, but there was no body. They started to do what they call the dematerialization and taking the medium from the chair into another room. They had done this a few times, but with different parts of my body, like my legs through the arms of the chair. So you start in one position and then all of a sudden the leg will go through the piece of wood and you'll have a perfect fluorescent bruise around your leg. Some of you have seen it before in my demonstrations, if they choose to do it or not. And this is where the demonstrations were becoming very peculiar. On a separate occasion with Debbie, who was also present with her mother, and a group of people, we were in the library, not the library, the interview room at the Arthur Findlay College. And I was upstairs doing an experimental sit-in, and there was a big desk in there. And again, they used the count the 5 on, 5 off. So instead of it being 10, it was 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, light on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, light off, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And on this occasion, they had picked the chair up and placed it on top of the desk with me still tied down as normal. And then as the light came back on, they had moved the whole of the chair besides one leg, which was on the corner of the desk, and the rest of it was suspended in the air in light for people to see. And then as quick as anything, they had put myself and my chair back on the floor, and the desk had gone up, balanced on one leg for all to see. And then quite quickly, the phenomena became even more aggressive, and the table and the desk was moved backwards and forwards, and the voices came and manifested. Why do we limit a limitless power? But as time goes on, maturity steps in. The spirit world have done their exercises, what they needed to do, and the work truly begins. Because it's important that through my work and through work of any other, that we try wherever possible to reunite the hearts of many people who have had a broken feeling within their self when someone has moved from this world into a world we call unseen. This is why I say to all of you, with physical mediumship, you have to be present. And while you're in the presence, that's when you truly know. Anyone can say important words or fake voices and all of that, but what can't be faked is the presence and the love of the spirit. The demonstrations started to get stronger, and more voices were being heard and recognized. And I was getting bored, and some of you mediums will know this, but when you are a worker, it's a selfless act, but you start to miss the phenomena. You start to miss the experiences that you used to have. So the spirit world started to wake me up. So I was allowed to be awake while the voices were being heard. And you can hear some really interesting tales when the voices whisper to you while everyone else is singing. You think, oh yeah, you're going to tell me some gossip. And it's so lovely to hear how cheeky they can be. But it shows that they have their personality. And on one occasion, that we lift up 2 trumpets. So 2 of these trumpets would lift up, and they would float in different parts of the room. And then they would wake me up, and I was able to talk. So my voice will be in one place, the trumpet will be over there, and another trumpet will be over there of a considerable distance, so that you know that the phenomena is away from me. And on this occasion, I was working in Scotland, and someone was circle leader. I won't say their name because it's not fair, but someone was circle leader. And as the spirit world prepared to wake me up, the music was on, and a voice said, could you please turn the music off? The trumpet was suspended about 2 to 2.5 meters away, up in the air over in the corner. The person couldn't find the music, so they decided to turn on the light. And they saw the trumpet suspended in the air with a rod that was connected to the side of the trumpet back into my stomach. The trumpet flew to the other side and fell to the ground, and this power rushed back very, very, very quickly and burnt my face and burnt my stomach and burnt the lady next to her, next to the cabinet. From that moment, my mediumship changed. A damage set in where the voice box wasn't strong. All the years of working had seemed to have faded away. When I got back to the confinements of my home circle, the safety of my circle, and the circle members had to find out how much damage had been done and how long will it take for me to recover to get the voices back, because the purpose of my work, the purpose of what we do, is to reunite people. And if I can't bring through a voice that is recognized, then it's just empty phenomena. The spirit world instructed that I would have to sit solely for development for 1.5 years without doing any public work whatsoever. And unfortunately, when this is your calling, when this is your vocation, your job, you have to work to then put food on the table. So things had to change. So the philosophy started to get strong as I started to continue to limp within physical mediumship. And that's why some people who may have come to recent seances will know that the voice box, which used to be so loud, is whimpering and whispering, still being able to be heard, but not as the same texture as it used to be. Isn't it wonderful? It can take years to develop you and a second to destroy it. So be careful who you hand your gift to. Now, if we look at the world, who's going to want to come into a seance room while this invisible force, the virus, is actually happening at the moment? So I'm using this time to recharge, to take that time out, to strengthen where there was weakness by obeying the voices that come and speak to me. And each of you must obey to the best that you can to be reassured that your development will naturally unfold. So this is one of the apports, one of the last apports that would have been achieved. It's of considerable size, about the size of my head. It's made out of solid wood. This was presented in November 2014 from the spirit world. It fell from the air. We thought Jan, one of my circle members, who's now selfishly passed from this world, she's now in the world unseen with her father and her mother. We thought she'd fallen off her chair, but they produced this lovely little thing here. They produced bracelets, they produced amulets, things that people used to own. So at this point, I want to show you some of the pictures to bring to life some of the people I've spoken to. Now, hopefully, cross your fingers, hopefully it's going to allow me to share it. So you're going to have to bear with me just for a moment. Share audio. Sandra has unmuted herself just in case things are going wrong.
A little song or dance. It's working.
Is it working? Perfect. I hope I haven't bored you all, but I'm just going to, if I can start a slideshow for you. You're already very naughty, already starting to look at some of the pictures. Okay, so Godspeed. Okay, should you, at this moment, are you seeing a white
Yes.
background? Perfect. Now, are you seeing a rabbit?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so let me begin then. So this is how you should enter a room. And it states, he who enters expecting nothing shall not leave disappointed. Anytime you work with the spirit world, you shouldn't have any expectations. You should just want to sit and be one. And this saying is on my seance room door in my shop. And this is where I ask anyone who comes on a journey with me, expect nothing and you won't be disappointed. If the spirit world is able to make contact, it's the cherry on top of the cake. Now, this lovely lady is Geraldine Austin. Do you remember I said to you, who told you, John? He said, my wife. This was the lovely lady that came through in a seance. Details. I had never met her, never knew of her, never met the medium that gave the information. But she materialized to speak to her husband and said, there's a young man I would like you to talk to. And my details were given, and they followed it, and they found my number, and they contacted me. So my development really started with this lovely lady who I'd never had the opportunity to hold and to hug. But I send my thoughts to her constantly. When times are at its worst, I say, Geraldine, be with me. This lovely man here is John Austin, ex-army, bushy tash, who was highly mediumistic. He was a physical medium himself. He was able to hold a tape recorder, and voices were heard, voices which were familiar to people who have said, that's my son, that's my daughter. And he sat for over 40 years to develop his ability to then give it to Colin, give that opportunity for Colin to unfold his gifts even further. And of course, he gave his time for me, enables me to speak with you now. This cheeky chap is young Daniel. Daniel, as I said to you, is a friend of mine. It's a very accurate picture. His teeth are very crooked. They're not good. I think sometimes when I say to him, when I look at you, it looks like you brushed your teeth with a stick of dynamite, or they're having a party. And he says, when I look at you, I see a forehead with teeth, because he knows that I'm receding. So we have a very cheeky sense of humor with each other, but with the utmost respect. He's not really a child, but he chooses to come back as a child to melt the hearts of everyone who talks to. He's very cheekily says, I'm 7 and a little bit more. I said, why are you a little bit more? And he said, because it always sounds so sweet. And it sounds so cuddly, so people will fall in love with me. So they won't fear the dark as I start to work. This picture is of the same man, and he is my love of my life from the unseen world. He was the one that came and said, I now speak to my brothers and sisters of the joining of our world and yours. Morning Star, known as Dull Knife, would come so frequently in the early days to win the reason of the circle. He speaks, I think, Laga Laga Sioux and Cheyenne. If you ask me to speak that, I wouldn't be able to, but he can hold a conversation with someone who actually knows that tongue, and he'll be able to speak back and forward, which again shows the intelligence from a discarnate mind. Matter through matter. You may need to look at this a little bit. Now, this is at the end of the sit-in. So my legs are tied and my legs are together. And at the end of the demonstration, my legs are still tied, but my leg is now through the arm of the chair. You will see where my hand is, there's a piece of wood going straight down, that's the arm of the chair. And to get me out, you would have to cut the ties off my legs, lean me back, and allow me to shuffle out the chair. And they did it recently, I believe, in New Orleans. But I kind of say to the spirit world, we can move from this, can't we? The only reason is because I'm not flexible and my hips hurt afterwards. You can see how young I am. There, look at those glasses, what an abomination. Those glasses are so thick that if I went to a club and a laser hit them, someone had open heart surgery. It was so thick, they were like ashtrays on piping. But don't worry about the glasses, look at the green ring. This is when they used to start to do matter through matter. And what they did is got a tennis racket and put it over my head and under my arm very, very tightly. You see, it looks like there's a black line through the tennis racket, one with on the picture where you see the number 4, that's a cable tie. They thought they would add a cable tie in so I can't sit up. So I've come out of the altered states, they've put the glasses on, they've gone to get the camera to take a photo, and all through this period of time, I'm uncomfortable. But they said we must document this form of phenomena. The chair you see me sitting in is a very chair which kind of somersaulted over the sofa and started to slide up the wall. You also see in the left picture, the back of me, you see just by my head, there's a red cone. That's the trumpet that I held up to show you I still had this trumpet. I couldn't tell you how old I am in that, but I know I'm younger than I am now and slimmer. So let's move swiftly on. Some of these are still photos that we've achieved through the sit-in just before John passed. You know how I said that we were able to get the photographs. Now, let's be honest, it looks like a rag. And that's why photographs never do for phenomena justice. You have to be present while this is being done. You will see it moving, you'll see it breathing, you'll see it dematerializing and rematerializing as it goes along. This very substance is the thing that allows the phenomena to take place. This is just a black and white one, which was taken. There's 18 photographs in existence, including one video of the sit-in that we have. The video lasts for 2.5 minutes, and that was achieved in Holland, in Naarden. These photographs were taken on the 25th of March 2011. The ectoplasm smells. It smells like boiled cabbage. It smells like wet earth. It's not a very pleasant smell, but the moment the spirit world steps into it, the smell melts away and it becomes as fragrant as flowers. You don't really see strong here, but this is one of the burns that I've had from a sit-in. My stomach is very burnt. It's more to do with the top part of above the belly button. That's where the main pain is. It started to blister. This is 20 minutes after an accident happened in Scotland, in the Arthur Findlay College, and I'm blistering around the area there. So when I go to stand up, it tears the blisters. So this is 20 minutes after a sit-in. I'm showing you these because I want to make it absolutely clear that physical mediumship can be a tool to really heal hearts, but also can damage the medium to such a degree where death can occur. I have to tell you, the next slide is a bit more gruesome. So I do apologize. I should have had a censor on this, but these are blood clots that I've coughed up during after we've experimented. I did a seance on the Friday night, and then I came back and I wasn't feeling well, went to bed, and then in the morning I literally coughed, and I coughed into a tissue first of all, what you see on the side, and then I ran to the toilet and I was coughing, and that came up and I ended up in hospital because they thought I had a blood clot and that was moving, and luckily that there was no blood clot and they couldn't work out why this was happening. A series of apports. Every apport I will show you has a long story, but every apport that comes through must have a meaning. This was given to Eileen Davies from Heather Hatton, and we went to see Eric Hatton in Starbridge and show him the picture of the apport, which he recognised. When I said about Kitty Wood at Arthur Findlay College, when the bracelet materialised from the mouth, this is the bracelet was materialised. What went with this was a pendant as well. This is really interesting, and again shows the awesomeness of the spirit world. The contact was being given out for a lady, but 2 people could take it, had connections where they were supposed to go to Egypt, but unfortunately, due to poor health of a family member, they weren't able to go to Egypt. So the communicator, what was coming through, said, we'll produce an apport, which you see is a silver amulet. But because someone else was able to take it, they then produced an other apport for the other lady, which is the Tutankhamun pendant that you see. I think the intelligence was because they said they weren't able to go to Australia and Egypt because the mothers had passed. I love this. This is a perfume bottle, which was given to a lovely guy from America. His name was Max, and he was at the Arthur Findlay College when I was demonstrating, and Jose Madrado was there, who was a spirit portrait artist, who produced these wonderful paintings, which are behind me, which you can't really see. And you bid on the painting, and he really wanted this painting, and this lady literally outbidded him. And every time he wanted to buy something, he was outbidded. And then he went to another demonstration and he was outbidded again. And he went into the seance room and he was quite upset. And the spirit world was able to pick up on it and said, the reason you didn't get a painting because it was needed somewhere else. But this is a gift from our world to you. And they produced this lovely Chinese perfume bottle for him. The leather-bound chairs. These are 2 of the 4 chairs, just to show you the sizes of them, and they were stacked on top of each other. So the wooden legs stuck on the arms of each of those chairs, so it's stuck high on top, up to my height, during the seance, which had about 28 people present within the room. They confirmed that the chairs weren't in the circle at the start of the demonstration, but at the end, the spirit world had brought them and dropped them solidly within the room. I wanted to show you these people. There are more to be added, but these are the people that make it possible for me to work. These good people come every Wednesday and sit and give their strength for me to make mistakes, for me to allow the development to unfold. To my circle, which is the Austin Wish Circle, who allow me to make mistakes. Now, I want to introduce you to two of my friends, two voices that used to speak quite frequently to me through the mediumship of Colin. Now, depending on your device, it may be quite loud or it may be quite soft. So I'm just giving you warning now. If you've got the volume up really, really loud, it may blow your head off. But let me introduce you to Dolly. Dolly is a drag queen who was demobbed from the war, and this is one of the photos of him in soldiers in skirts. I can't pinpoint which one's Dolly, but I'm going to play his voice to you now. So hopefully you can hear it. And Sandra, could you please wave at me if you can?
Well, what's more appropriate than an old queen following a duke? Hello, my dear. Well, let's have a little look around and see what we've got here. Ladies, gentlemen, a few suspicious characters. Yes.
What you wearing tonight, Dolly?
It's like looking at the three wise monkeys. See no, hear no, and denying ever responsibility of ever any evil. Yes. Something gorgeous, dear. Yeah.
What colour?
Well, as you know, Dribbler has just come back from Sweden.
Yes.
And of course I had a gorgeous frock out there, darling. And yes, I did. And I decided that I would keep in my consciousness that gorgeous frock. So tonight I am in blue and yellow.
Beautiful.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Yes. And I think rather in a gypsy style. Yes. Yes, all Trey's bone rhythmic.
And shoes, Dolly, this evening?
Yes, actually, yes, I am in shoes. Daffodil still is, yes. Yes, and my hair is going all down my Gem and Jack tonight. Yes, yes, my hair all down the Gem and Jack. Yes, boner. Yes. Now, for those of you that never spoke to me before, my name is Daniel, known to my friends as Dolly, and yes, I am. Yes, and I am here to try, it's my little job, you see, to try and help people to come through. And I am going to try and help a few people to come through and speak to you this evening.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
Yes, Trey's boner. And, yes, and touch your face. And, yes, and one of my other jobs, for those of you that have never had the privilege and pleasure and the absolute intense joy of speaking to me before, is I help people come over as well. Yes. I bet you'd like to pass to the other side, wouldn't you, young man? Yes. Fancy.
Yes. Me, sorry. I'm so young gentleman here.
Yes, you ever thought of coming to the other side? Yes. No.
But if you allow me to meet you when I do, though.
Yes, and you will. Because that's what I do. I help people to come over, you see. Now, this all started, you see, after I've been here for ages. And they came to me one day and they said, now, listen here, Daniel, because they can't bring themselves to call me Dolly, you see. And they said, now, look, listen here. You've been over here for quite some time now, and you really need to take on some duty. Well, I mean, I've got to be honest, I mean, I was actually trying out different nail polishes every night. And they said to me, no, you've actually got to take on a duty. And they said, no, look, there's lots of people coming over with this horrible disease, and we think you'd be an appropriate person to, to help them and show them as they come in through the light that they are not going to be punished. So, I mean, that's how I started off.
I wanted to introduce you to Dolly to show you how natural we are talking, how much laughter is there. Now, Dolly would bring back your loved ones. Dolly would be the one who would materialize with a baby in her hand and saying, I believe this one belongs to you. And will hand you the baby, and you will sit there and play with your bundle of joy during the seance. Dolly was the one that said to me, I've got someone here for you, and moved me with a loved one coming through and said, I believe this one belongs to you. And I always loved Dolly because I love the underdog. Some people will say, well, she is not a proper communicator. She was a force to be reckoned with. She was there to make sure we laughed so that we would create the power for our friends to come and talk. This is another example. Now, you've also got to bear in mind, every seance we sat in, loved ones came through. We may only have 5 or 6 loved ones, and then they would bring someone who was known to everyone, so we can then take something from it. So I haven't put any loved ones on here because, first of all, it was private people. A lot of people, you would hear them scream, cry, laugh, hug, kiss, all of that when their loved ones are coming back to say, I'm not dead, I'm still here. But this is a lovely man who's known as Gandhi. We knew him as Bapu, and he came through back in 2002 and gave us advice on how we could help India, but also how we can look at war. And this is Gandhi. He starts off soft, but he gets stronger.
Welcome, friend.
Welcome.
That's Gandhi. We can't quite hear you, friend. All right. Of course we will, friend. It's lovely to hear you. Send our love to you. We do indeed.
I am a very old man.
Who did you wish to speak to, friend?
I do not come to talk with one person. I come to talk with everybody. A very long time ago, I told Nehru, you allow India and Pakistan to become two separate countries. You will see the streets stained red.
Oh dear.
Oh dear.
Come on.
Sorry, you didn't.
You see the streets stained red?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's from India and Pakistan? I think I know
Yes,
I am no longer of your side of life.
No.
I cannot appeal to the people for sanity. I can no longer commit myself to refuse to eat until no more fighting.
That's right.
There is nobody in Pakistan, India, Kashmir, Bangladesh
True.
who inspires my people enough.
No.
My country, once a land of great spirituality, has become a country, one country. I will never acknowledge the existence of Pakistan, Bangladesh, That is one country, one people.
Yes. So what advice would you give to us to help in any way that we might be able to? Just
It was often said I was a man who was opposed to fighting.
Yes.
I never opposed fighting. If you are confronted with wrong or injustice, you must fight with all your life.
Yes.
You must be prepared to give your life,
Yes. Yes.
but never at the expense of another life.
That's right. That's right. Yes.
The only way that those of you of other countries can fight for India and the people of India is to withdraw. Withdraw all support. Withdraw all funds. Withdraw all supplies. If they wish to starve themselves of goodness and rightness, then they have no right to sustenance of any kind. For only when they will desire to feed their souls and one another with kindness and goodness must they be able to have the means to feed themselves in other ways. There are some that would say this is not humanitarian. But why would you make a man strong, feed him so he was strong, so that he could go and kill another man?
Yes, exactly.
The wise and caring person would say, I cannot help you till you will feed yourself. Feed yourself with good and kind. To allow this fever of hatred, this fever of prejudice to be burned from your soul. It will be a very hard time for the people of your world.
Yes.
The time when you will be seen to be uncaring, but you will be caring in the greatest way.
Yes.
To make my people be sane once again. For God's sake, Hindu can live with Muslim.
Yes.
Muslim can live with Sikh.
Yes.
This is a triangle. Hindu, Muslim, Sikh. What they cannot see is that at the center of this triangle is the one God.
Yes. True.
The perfect triangle cannot stand without its angles.
No, it's true.
Take away one and you do not have the triangle.
That's correct, yeah.
There must be, as must be all your world, one people, one God, one world.
Yes. Yes.
Well,
So that was our friend Bapu, who gave us the wisdom when he would materialize this bundle of loveliness who shuffled from the cabinet, would go over to your head, and he had bony fingers and long nails, and he would do this, and petals would apport and fall down you as the blessing. But what was more extraordinary is that we never shared what was said in the seances, because we knew that the spirit world will always try to give us proof. A young lady came to one of my courses. I never met her before. And she sat there and she was taken into the trance states. And out came this familiar voice that continued a conversation that I had over a year before through another medium. And then when I got to the Arthur Findlay College, and Eileen Davies gave a beautiful demonstration of trance, the humble friend came back and reminded me of who he truly was. And it was Bapu once again sharing thoughts with us. So it shows again the intelligence of the spirit world, of how they come and to give us thoughts. The road of any form of unfoldment is long. It's an infinite road. It's not an easy road. But as you start to take flight and move further, your soul is telling you that you must do this. From that simple act many years ago, I have seen and witnessed every form of phenomena known besides full materialization in broad daylight. I have gone from believing to knowing, to the point now I do not fear death. I only fear the process of death. I know that my father and everyone else lives within this world, a world in which I will return to. And it is my duty, along with others, who will sit or stand to represent all those who have lost their voice. And through our senses, we will be able to remind people that death is not the end. Never give up. Your gifts are unique to you. Do not try and follow someone else. Sit, and if you are struggling to unfold your gifts, talk to the spirit world and say, how do you want me to serve you? Because that's exactly what John said to me, and he would say to you if he was here now. Go back and listen to the voices of our friends. And if they seem silent to you, but they hear your thoughts and they feel your love. And one day, the flame will ignite within you, and many people will come and huddle in that warmth of what you have created. You are the healers between the two worlds, healing the need of the bereaved, as well as healing the need of the spirit. So within your hands now is your potential. Keep it safe. Remember, it takes years to develop you and a single moment to destroy it. A single word can excel you into it, and a single word can say, no, I'm not interested. So be you, because that's who God made and who the spirit world is interested in. So I don't know if I've kept you interested, entertained, thirsty to know more about physical mediumship, or have satisfied that moment and said, this isn't for me. But whatever gifts you possess, a mighty power is behind you. And it is needed more than ever now. So let us work together. No gift is greater or lesser. We are one. We are one in the eyes of the Great Spirit. I thank you so much for spending your evening with me, or your day, or your morning, wherever you are. And I hope I have introduced you to the person behind the mediumship, but also introduce you to the circle. No matter what is thrown at, is still strong and is willing to serve. So thank you. And thank you to Sandra for letting us have this opportunity.
Oh, thank you, Scott. And I just want to invite people to do a couple of things that are free if you are interested in more of this. Number one, I have interviewed Scott, I think at least 5 times on We Don't Die Radio. filled with stories that are so comforting of things he has witnessed and participated in. One of the more recent episodes is Darren Wynn, who's a circle leader, who's somewhere behind the camera right now, how he got involved. Very, very healing stories. Also, because Scott, we're in lockdown still, most of us, and he's not able to work as a physical medium. He has been online every Friday doing trance mediumship demonstrations. And so it's an opportunity for him to close his mind, blend with his spirit team, and allow them to use his mouth and speak. And often we can ask questions and they respond with answers. And something different for this Friday is going to be an experimental trance demonstration, meaning no pressure from the spirit world to answer questions. It's however they wish to use his mediumship. So something new for this age, which I think the state of the world exists right now, that we need to communicate like we are right now. So we'd love for you to join this. If you're watching this on Facebook right now, there's a link of how you can join in. If you got an email from me and that's why you're joining us here, you will have seen the link. If you go to WeDon'tDieRadio.com and click on store, there'll be a picture there that says the experimental trance demonstration. Right now it says a price of $15. If you wish to give, you're welcome to. If you don't, you don't have to. Just type in the coupon code FREE, F-R-E-E, and it's complimentary. We would just love for you to be there. We won't be broadcasting it over Facebook. It'll be in the safe zone of a Zoom room. So we'd just love for you to be there and support the spirit people and Scott and Darren and the Austin Wish Circle and myself, and just whichever way we can be of assistance going forward to bring this beautiful message of hope, healing, and the words that we don't die, our loved ones are around us. And so someday in the future, you can most certainly visit Scott in Banyan Retreat or at one of the retreats he's at somewhere in the world. But for right now, we're asking you to join us online. So Scott, thank you again. Oh, I forgot to mention something. We had originally thought we'd have time for questions in this event. I have captured your questions, and on Friday after the trance demonstration, we'll have more time and Scott will be answering questions then. Okay, so hang on to your questions until Friday after the trance demonstration. Anything else, Scott, or just a...
It's just, it was just because at 8 o'clock we do absent healing, and I need to kind of change the room so that we can sit and send healing for an hour. So I do apologize if I haven't answered questions or you think, Scott, you're a bit peculiar. It's just that we've got to do some service to what is in need at this moment. But I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. If this is the first and last time you hear my voice, I wish you well in whatever you do. I always said that if you die before me, come back and let me know that you've arrived safely. Let me know that everything what we know to be is true. But if I die before you, I'll come back and haunt you and shake your bed and go, oh, all of that loveliness. So thank you to Sandra. Thank you for We Don't Die. Thank you for your time. And let's do good things wherever it may be.
Great. Much love to everyone. Remember, you might think you're alone right now, but you are surrounded by a force to be reckoned with, your spirit friends and your loved ones. So wishing you a great rest of your day, and God willing, we'll see you on Friday. Bye, everyone.